How do we deal with difficult people? How do we deal with conflict? Sometimes, do you know what I feel when I'm in a situation where I've got conflict? Oh, the reason you're in this conflict is because you're weak. You don't stand up for yourself properly. People, they're laughing at you. They're all sniggering at you and they think you're a no mark, nobody, stupid little fool, pushover. That's why I had this conversation with Jocko Willink, who is pretty hard. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's a serious geezer. And like when I spoke to him about conflict, and I always do this when I talk to people, I think, well, you can handle conflict. You can handle it. You know, some people just seem like they kind of like it. Listen, buddy. Like, well, Jocko Willink, he couldn't be more compassionate, forgiving, and he avoids conflict whenever there's a possibility of avoiding conflict. That's the route Jocko Willink takes because he ain't got nothing to prove. He's not trying to prove anything. He's a badass former Navy SEAL. He stays on the level. I want to be more like Jocko Willink. Sometimes I feel like I've got to prove myself, so I step into confrontation. Probably I unconsciously create confrontations. All confrontations, really, when it comes to the final analysis, are happening within ourselves and with ourselves. We have difficult people, but, you know, you're going to hate me for saying this, but they're often our best teachers, aren't they? Because they put you in situations where you're confronted. Like, if someone flares up my ego, then it's showing me there's too much ego in me. If someone makes me feel self-pitying, then all of these forms of irritation suggest to me that I am too dominated and controlled by external things. Often I find myself, when I'm confronting people, I'm trying to prove something to myself. Here's what Jocko Willink had to say about how he handles difficult situations and confrontations. It comes from my podcast, Under the Skin, available from Luminary. You can get it on Apple. Have a look.
What happens if someone provokes you? Like, what happens if, you know, the simple things, road rage, people being aggressive or confrontational? I imagine there are certain non-verbal signals that you are giving off that prevent that kind of thing happening too frequently. But if it does happen, how do you respond to that?
Well, for a road rage incident, you know, if someone was yelling at me, what I do in a situation like that is I'd probably say, hey, sorry, man, didn't mean to. If it's, you know, if I accidentally bump into someone in a bar and they get hostile with me, I'll probably say, hey, man, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Pete, can I buy you a beer? What are the other examples you had?
Yeah, they were just sort of like everyday potential confrontation. So you're not invested in that kind of stuff. I remember with, like, you know, Hiron and Henna, like, neither of them have ever had a fight in the street ever in their lives, you know, for sort of obvious reasons. And he talked me through a situation once where there was a confrontation and just like where he put his hand on somebody and he demonstrated it, and it was just a hand on the shoulder, you know, but the information was clear in the hand on the shoulder, you know. And yeah, so you're not particularly provoked or invested in that because you're very, very centered, presumably, from the amount of extremity.
Yeah, and you know, anyone that's gonna try, they're usually provoking your ego, you know. So I'm not really gonna let some person get me emotional about whatever's going on. You got to figure they've had a rough day. Like, if someone's that mad because you cut them off in the car, man, what's going on in their world? I don't know what's happened to I don't know if they got a sick kid. I don't know if they got fired from their job. There's all kinds of situations that could be happening. There's a, you know, my life is pretty good. There's a 98% chance that person's having a much worse day than I'm having. So I don't want to make their day any worse. I'm sure there's some nonverbal signals that I give off too. I normally don't get, you know, accosted on the street. It's more likely in a car that someone can't really tell, you know, what I look like, and maybe they might flip me off or something like that, and I'll, you know, say sorry and wave or whatever. But we're looking to de-escalate those situations. Nothing good is going to come out of them.
It's lovely, and I thank you, Jocko, for this conversation. And I also like the way that it seems, to some degree at least, to be built around a willingness to let go of a individualistic and egoic perspective. The thing that interests me most is how culture might be better informed by a set of values that are built on service, kindness, selflessness, while recognizing that there are alternative stimuli in all of those areas, that there is always a temptation, an attraction towards the ego to vent in, domination. Those kind of ideas are sort of attractive and I think are promoted culturally. And often when they're spiritually promoted, it can be a bit rootless, traditionalists, not earthed in a set of that's for want of a better word, sort of masculine principles of high value, at a time when, like, you hear a lot about toxic masculinity, aspects that you might regard as masculine, even if it's not particularly, or literally associated with the genders of male and female, I shall say, like duty, service, honor, integrity. These seem to me to be very, very important ideas I'm interested in promoting and learning about.
That's how I'm going to handle conflict from now on. I'm going to be calm. I've got nothing to prove. I want to be loving. I know that every person I meet deep down is a damaged person, that there's something they could tell me about themselves that will make me cry with compassion and make me feel nothing but love and empathy for them. And that is what I want to find for other people, empathy. I don't want to be a pushover. I'm not a pushover. I'm connected to God and I bow before nobody. I'm a servant of a higher force. This is how we all should be. I don't think you're better than me. I don't think you're worse than me. I've got a right to be here. You've got a right to be here. We don't need to live in our neurosis, making our lives a theatre for our psychotic, hysterical, damaged, traumatized inner selves. We can clear our inner selves and live harmoniously with one another. All problems ultimately have to be resolved within us. Let's have a little look at some quotes on the matter. Gandhi, of course, the classic, an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Should get that out of the Bible. American educator Horace Mann said, do not think about knocking another person's brains out because he differs in opinion from you. It would be as rational to knock yourself on the head with a hammer because you differ from yourself 10 years ago. I've changed my mind about global warming. So I suppose when it comes to conflict, an interesting way of getting past it is to recognize that you don't need to prove yourself in the outside world. But deeper than this is the idea that we are not separate from other people, that all relationships are a reflection of some aspect of ourselves. In fact, neurologically, where do these relationships take place? Do you think you fully know another human being, even the people that you know most intimately? Do they not channel into your being through your senses of touch and smell and taste and sight? They come to you through the senses. They exist within you. It is the inner world where we resolve conflict. I'm going to remember this next time I'm at a traffic light, trying to act a little bit hard. I'm going to be a bit more like Jocko Willink. Let's stay calm and compassionate. Treat other people how we would like to be treated, not for moral and ethical reasons, but because, for all we know, we are living in a simulation and we are punching ourselves in the face at a traffic light. That doesn't seem very sensible. If you enjoyed this video, here's another one just like it that you can check out. Please give us a comment below, subscribe to my channel, have a look at these videos on the main channel, and get on my mailing list at russellbrand.com. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.